So pretty recently I actually made a video talking about how the Isekai genre really needed to innovate or risk going down the same path the harem genre went down. In other words, fade into obscurity and only become a subgenre in other anime. If you guys want to watch my video and see my argument, I'll have a link to that down in the description. But it's pretty clear that I am not the only one that thinks that way. I mean, my boy MudanTV put out a similar video levying very similar complaints. Granted, told in a much more awesome narrative. Real talk, if you guys don't watch MudanTV's videos, he's seriously like one of the best creators in anime YouTube who just doesn't have any recognition. I'll have a link to his video also in the description, so you guys should definitely go check it out after you're done watching this, and then come back to my channel, because I don't want you guys leaving. However, something I wasn't expecting happened. Despite this season having a ton of Isekai anime, most of them have been pretty fantastic. In particular, two of them really may be the genre-breaking anime that we need. So let's take some time to talk about these anime and find out what makes them special. So I do have to admit, I am cheating a little bit when I say this season because the first major anime I want to talk about is Ascendance of the Bookworm. It's actually an anime that started last season and has continued running into this season. One of the things that this anime does right out the gates is something that I've been begging for since the Isekai genre became popularized. I wanted these shows to cover culture shock, and that is this show's very first arc. Mime realizes she's in another world with people she doesn't know and will never be able to see her family again, and has a nervous breakdown. Not to mention, the question of who was Mime before our protagonist took over is actually answered. It's a girl who died. Hell, like 2/3 of the show is her coming to terms with the fact that she low-key took over a dead girl's body. Not to mention, people who were close to Mime, in particular Lutz, notice that something is up. They realize that there is no way in hell this girl knows all this information. I mean, a little kid is the first one to be like, "Look, bitch, I know you ain't mine. Who the hell are you and why do you know all this stuff?" I'm so happy because this anime really did implement a lot of the ideas that I had been talking about in my Let's Make Isekai Great Again video, and I binged the hell out of this show. Like legit, I actually only heard like 1 or 2 people talking about this anime, and I was like, screw it, I'll give the first episode a try, and then I just fell in love with the show, and I had caught up in 24 hours. And look, I know you real anime pros could have binged the whole show in one sitting, okay, I get it. But I had shit to do, okay? Leave me alone. It's not a competition, guys. Unless I'm winning, in which case it is a competition. The major changes to the isekai genre that Bookworm is attempting to make is fantastic. I mean, not to mention, Mime is not actually a generic self-insert character either. She's unique, quirky, and actually causes a lot of the problems in the anime. Actually, do you guys remember when I was complaining about how OP characters in anime have gotten so incredibly boring? Mime is actually the perfect example of how to make an OP character interesting. Yeah, she has all the knowledge of her past life and a ton of mana. However, this girl can barely walk, and the mana is actually a curse because it'll kill her if she can't find any way of draining it. And no, unfortunately, she can't just use magic spells. She has to buy magical items which go for insane prices that her poverty-stricken family could never dream of affording. And you may think, well, why doesn't she just go invent the printing press or something huge like that and make a ton of money? And to that end, she's basically already on a watch list for the minor things she's invented, and if she does too much, she is probably going to be kidnapped. You know, with the whole thing of her being incredibly weak physically and extremely sickly, she wouldn't be much of a hard target. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I love it. Mime is just in such a shitty predicament, and it's funny because she has to keep thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody, and frankly, she messes up a lot. Another show I want to briefly touch on is Princess Connect Redive. It's a more generic isekai, but at the very least, it follows a similar pattern of un-overpowering their main characters and making them unique. Well, unique is an odd word. Sure, he's meant to be a stand-in character, but boy do they take that stand-in part a little bit too seriously. He's a character who's conveniently had all of his past memories wiped. Except they weren't playing when they said all of his past memories were wiped. He doesn't know the basics of like how to fight, or what food is, or how to speak. Yeah, you see where this is going now, right? It's just a good old-fashioned satire of bringing literally the most generic punching bag into another world and seeing if it doesn't die. And so far it looks like the answer is not quite yet. Another show I want to briefly touch on before I end on my favorite isekai is Eighth Son. For some reason I keep finding myself hating on this show, mostly by accident. I don't particularly want to praise this anime as it hasn't really done anything to separate itself from the pack. However, I do like its somewhat carefree attitude. Like legit, this is the first isekai anime I've seen in God knows how long, where there's just another guy and his main group of friends. Like a normal guy who has a name, gets development, and isn't just there to make protagonist Kun look good. This show is carefree and it knows it's generic, but it doesn't let that fact bog it down. It knows what it is and it lives up to it. And you know what? If we're gonna get a generic isekai anyway, this is what I want. And finally, time to talk about my all-time favorite isekai of the season. And come on guys, you already know what it is. It's Shokugeki no Soma. I'm just kidding. It is my life as a villainess. Now this show just speaks to me as a closeted fujoshi. Actually, am I even closeted anymore? I feel like literally everyone knows how bad I am at this point. But hear me out. You definitely don't need to be a fujoshi to enjoy this anime. Once again, we are given a similar protagonist to Bookworm, where she takes over a little girl's body. However, instead of the previous girl dying, they kind of just become one. Wait a second, does that mean my life as a villainess and Gleipnir are in the same universe? Either way, one of the things I just love about this anime is the fact that our protagonist is so incredibly unique. Katarina really makes this show because she's such a strong-willed protagonist. She's not meant to be the self-insert. Instead, her only objective is survival, since she's basically in her old otome game where the character she has taken over dies or gets banished in just about every variation. Another thing this anime does incredibly well is building their supporting cast of characters. Instead of Katarina being this genius from another world who creates all of these inventions, she's more realistic in the fact that she doesn't really know or invent shit. So she's actually somewhat behind the curve when it comes to intelligence. Most of the characters go out of their way to help her either study or just understand basic manners, probably the latter being what she struggles at the most. This is one of the few isekai I've seen where the entire show is actually focused on developing the characters and their relationships with one another. The actual building of the world takes a backseat to building up all of these characters who you just can't help but love. I'm just saying, man, I'm personally on team Keith X Stewart. I mean, that's probably the most messed up ship out of all of them, but hey, that's just my personal taste. Then again, I am also part of the group of people who ship Bakugo and Uraraka, and that's mostly because Bakugo is a feminist. Fight me. But no, seriously, this season has been an extremely successful one for isekai. I feel like a lot of the shows this season are taking a step in the right direction, trying to find some way to separate themselves from the generic isekai tropes of the past. In particular, I have to give some huge credit over to Ascendance of a Bookworm and My Life as a Villainess. Two anime that definitely took a lot of risk making their shows. Hell, Bookworm is a full 24 episode season, and frankly I find it amazing that it got greenlit in the first place. But of course, I'm really happy that that happened because thanks to this show, we can make isekai great again. Hey guys, we did it! I hope at least. God, I'm sorry if I feel or sound zombie-like. That's because I had to make this whole video in under 24 hours because my mic broke and I had to restart everything. It was awful. And me. But I got a new mic. Hopefully it sounds pretty good. I'd have to imagine it's not awful. Hopefully this week I'll be able to upload 3 videos again, but if you want to help, make sure you support me on Patreon. That was a super good segue by yours truly. Anyway, a huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are my heroes. Please make sure you guys share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Man. Make sure you guys say man and go watch that goddamned anime.